We'll call the meeting to order from the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll have a moment of silence. And we'd like to welcome you all this morning to the Board of County Commissioners meeting. We're going to canvass the election ballots, and we'll take a roll call. Commissioner KAAZ, are you present?
Present.
Commissioner Shimke? Commissioner Shimke?
Present. Present, sir.
Commissioner Culbertson?
I'm here.
And Commissioner Stephen present. Commissioner Smith is absent. So welcome all this time. And is this the time we need to make a motion to resolve ourselves into the Board of County Canvassers?
So moved. Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to dissolve into the...
One second. Commissioner KAAZ, you made the motion, and Commissioner Culbertson, you seconded.
Oh, yeah. That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, correct. All those in favor say aye.
You have to poll.
Commissioner KAAZ?
Commissioner KAAZ votes aye.
Commissioner Shimke?
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Commissioner Culbertson votes aye.
And Commissioner Stephen votes aye. All right, we are in Board of County Commissioners, and I recognize our great county clerk, Janet KLASINSKI.
Thank you. You have in front of you, and it was in your packet, commissioners that are listening by phone, a breakdown of the general election of November 3rd. This is a breakdown of the number of votes that were voted on Election Day, the number of advance that we received, whether it be satellite, in-person, advance, or mail in person. You also have a column that are the ballots that were received after Election Day, but postmarked Election Day or before. So those were valid ballots that we could count. You also have on that spreadsheet the number of provisionals that I recommend qualified and the number of provisionals that I recommend not qualified. On the spreadsheet, it is done by polling place, not necessarily by precinct, because as they come in, it is done as a polling place. They're not individually done as a precinct. So, looking at the spreadsheet, each one of the votes that were counted at the polling place, and that is by precinct, what the election workers reported and what was counted on the DS-200, there was absolutely no discrepancies. Everything balanced to the T. Our advance balanced with the poll books that we recorded from October the 14th. I believe advance began up until noon the day before the election. We'll go over the provisionals in just a minute. We are now required by Kansas statute to do a manual audit. The Secretary of State's office supplies us 3 races, and then we do a random selection of precincts. So this year, we had to manually audit a precinct that was the United States representative. We had to manually audit for 41st 41st Rep District, and we had to do a manual audit of 3rd Precinct, 5th Ward for the sheriff's race. We called in special boards that were not, no one from my office was on the board. It was just a manual selection of people to come in and do that audit. Once again, those numbers were the very same as what was reported through the DS-200. Those manual audits not only include Election Day, but they included all the advance that was voted prior to. Everything was the exact numbers. We certified those numbers to the Secretary of State after the election, and they give us the okay to go ahead and proceed with the official canvass of the November 3rd general election. In looking at this report, I have added a column in there for turnout per precinct, because I always think those are interesting results for the public to have and all candidates to have. As soon as the canvass is over, we will run a report, put it on our web page that shows exact breakdown per candidate, per precinct, which is usually something else that the public likes to see. If you go to the last page of the report, we had a total of 36,397 people vote. That equated to a 73.2% overall turnout. That percentage of turnout was the highest that I have seen since I have been working elections. Some of our precincts were well into the 80% turnout, which was pretty remarkable. Also looking at that spreadsheet, you will see that the advance is kind of where it was at this year. We had 22,818 people that voted advance. A lot of that was by mail, but certainly a lot of it was in-person advance. Election Day, we had 13,230 people vote. Does anyone have any questions as they are going through this spreadsheet with the results of what took place per polling place?
Do any of the commissioners have questions?
This is Commissioner KAAZ. I just have one question, just as a kind of a general rule. For the provisionals that were that you're recommending not be counted, what were some of the reasons, just so that the public might know, that their provisional ballot might not have been counted?
Vicki, you don't have this spreadsheet, but I did supply another spreadsheet that I worked up that goes over the exact reasons, and I certainly can go over those. If there were probably 3 or 4 reasons why a provisional was not counted. But before I get into that, let me just tell you that we had 636 provisionals this year. Out of those provisionals, 378 were qualified. 258 were not qualified. The not qualified reasons are as follows. We had 5 advance that were not counted due to the fact that they voted at the polling place, but we also received a ballot in the mail for them that was counted. So those 5 advance were not counted. We had 1 ballot that the voter did not supply ID. We really go the extra mile in the office. I actually talked to this little gal, and she had her wallet stolen because I specifically asked her, do you have a school ID? Do you have a work ID? I know that she did not have her driver's license. She did not have a passport. She She was not going to be able to get any of that until November the 26th, and so I was not able to qualify that. Not that I didn't, feel for her, but I have to follow very stringent guidelines. The other reason they weren't qualified is I had 2 ballots that were returned in the mail that were not signed. We reached out 3 times to each one of those voters, asking them to please sign. Do you want us to mail it? So they never did come in and sign, or we were not able to get them to sign, and so those 2 were not qualified. I had 54 that registered after the close of voter registration. Voter registration always closes 21 days prior to an election, and so 54 people registered after the close of registration, then voted a provisional, which we could not count. Or no. Yeah. And then I had 6 pieces of mail that were returned after or postmarked after Election Day. And so those were not able to be signed or qualified. We had 190, which is the majority, that were never registered at all. And so I did break that down just so that the commissioners and the public would know that 54 registered after the deadline, but 190 were never registered at all.
Are those 190 now registered?
They are now registered. With the provisional process, the voter fills out a voter registration card, and they are now registered. We will go ahead and process those registrations now and get the voter a card in the mail.
Got it.
That's the breakdown of the provisionals, and of course, the qualifieds. If you look at that, we had name changes. The person was registered prior to, changed their name, so that ballot counted. We had 196 that received an advance ballot through the mail. They made the decision to go to the polling place, maybe because they just wanted to vote there, maybe because they didn't get their advance in the mail. It could be, a couple of different reasons. But we did have 196 that voted at the polling place that had received, or at least had requested and been mailed a ballot. We had 148 that had moved within the county. Excuse me. They were previously registered, but they moved, voted the correct ballot, so we could count those. We had 20 clerical errors, whether that was a clerical error on the part of the election worker or a clerical error on the part of us in the office. So, of course, we qualified those. So that is kind of a synopsis of the reasons that I'm recommending qualified and recommending not qualified. Each one of these reasons are set out in the guidelines that are through the Kansas Secretary of State's office.
Okay, do the commissioners have additional questions? Are there any additional questions? Okay, at this time, somebody mute your phone. Okay, at this time, we'll make a motion to accept the clerk's recommendations for handling of the provisional ballots.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Hey, Mike, real quick. Rick, this is Commissioner Shimke. Question for Janet is, thank you for helping to explain. I know I've had a number of questions about provisional ballots and how those work. My question was just, it looked like there were at least 2, maybe 3 races that were within a couple hundred, 200-300 votes, and I think if I heard you right, as you walk through all of those stipulations or reasons why some could be considered and others wouldn't have qualified, what is the true number of those provisionals after audit or review that would have actually counted versus the total number we started with?
That's the 378.
I told you, we had 636. I'm recommending 378 be qualified, and I'm recommending that 258 not be qualified. I'm going to, we will take a break here, and we'll go down and count these provisionals. They at this time are not counted because I have to wait for a motion by the board to count those provisionals.
So, but you did say that we don't have any races that are going to most likely change.
I don't believe, we've had provisionals for really many years. I can say many years. And usually a provisional, whether you have 300, 400, 500, so much of the time it's kind of one for one. And I've never seen, for instance, 378 provisionals go one way, or just vote for one person. That's why I don't feel, in my professional opinion, that it will make a difference on a race when it comes to the final numbers that you will certify.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Shimke? Okay, then we will entertain a motion to accept the clerk's recommendations for the handling of the provisional ballots.
Sorry, Mike. I didn't realize this is Commissioner Shimke again. I didn't realize I was on mute. So as a follow-up, so Janet, just apparently there's 3 figures being shared, the total number, the number that you're saying is qualified, and the number that you're saying is unqualified. So there's 378 that will be reviewed, or is it the 258? I'm sure it's just the verbiage that I'm not understanding.
We will count 378 ballots.
Got it. And then the last question I had was just for my education. When I looked, on Election Day and a few times since on our website, and you look by race, whether that was the presidential or for U.S. Senate, etc., and you total all the votes, there's obviously inconsistencies from race to race to race, meaning if there were 36,115 votes for the presidential race, there were several others that obviously counted at below 36,000 that would have been voted on by everybody in the county, right? So I'm curious why, just again, my education, why the U.S. Senate race would have, 120 or 130 less votes between the two, or what would be another example? Even the sheriff race, there was a 600 vote difference between the presidential race and the sheriff race, just as a total. So I'm curious, is that just people not making a choice for that particular race, or is it because it's hard to make out? Again, just I don't have a clue how that would happen. I was just surprised to see that I couldn't get one county-wide race to add up to the same total, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. When somebody receives a ballot, that person can vote for one race, they could vote for all the races, they can vote for 5. They do not have to complete the entire ballot. In the official results, you will see a number of overs and unders. And that will make it balance back also. But that, exactly what you said, how someone will receive a ballot and they're only going to vote for the President of the United States, then that's all that's going to be on there. It's kind of amazing. You would think that if somebody received a ballot in the mail and returned that ballot in the mail, that they would have voted it. We have received blank ballots back, totally blank. And so that is the reason, Chad, for the discrepancy in numbers. Because when I say 36,000 voters, that's actually what it is. It's voters. It's not 36,000 votes for president. It's not necessarily 36,000 or 36,000 votes for sheriff, because it's up to the voter who they want to vote for. If you look at the judges, that's a very prime example. Many people do not vote for the judge races. Retention.
Can you explain overvotes and undervotes?
Mm-hmm. An undervote is when they do not vote on that race at all. An overvote would be if they vote for two candidates instead of one candidate.
So they vote for both candidates. That doesn't work out so well. I did have one question. On your return to the mail, when you were going and trying to get the signatures from them on a provisional, do you keep working on that is the deadline the Friday following the election? Is that
for those signatures?
Yes.
Yeah, we tried even last week.
Yeah.
ID, signature, those would be the two. They have up until the time of the canvass to come in and make the correction.
So they have till the canvass. Okay. Do the commissioners have any further questions?
This Commissioner Shimke, I don't. Janet, thank you.
Thank you. So what I'll do now, did we ever have a motion?
I'm waiting for the motion. So we need a motion to accept the clerk's dissemination of how the provisional ballot should be handled.
Commissioner KAAZ moves that we accept the recommendations of the clerk.
And we need a second. Commissioner. Okay,
Commissioner
seconded by Commissioner Shimke. There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I would just like to say, Janet, thank you for how much you've done all these years and how you handle these elections. I can't even imagine. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Wonderful people.
Hearing no further discussion, can you mute your phone? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner KAAZ?
Commissioner KAAZ votes aye.
Commissioner Shimke?
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Commissioner Culbertson votes aye.
And Commissioner Stephen votes aye. So we'll wait for you.
Count the provisionals. I will bring up a report then, and we'll certify that. We'll certify the election of November 3rd.
All right. Think by 10:45 or so.
Oh, it'll be before that.
Before. Okay. We'll be in recess till 10:40 or 9:40.
Oh no, 9:40. I don't know that I'll be through at 9:40.
Right. So 9. So 10 o'clock.
You don't have to recess.
No, just give me 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll just give you 20 minutes.
Okay, I'll be back.
Yeah. Are we up?
No, this stays on.
That stays on the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it stays on, but you don't have to stay here. Yeah, you don't have to stay
I think I won't stay here. Might say something I don't want to say.
How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you?
It's Monday morning.
Yes, it is. It's a busy Monday.
Beautiful day outside now.
Hey, Mike, this is Commissioner Shimke. I couldn't exactly tell with the back and forth there with Janet what time, how much time she thought she needed.
20 minutes, Chad.
Okay.
Phone didn't ring, did it?
I haven't been up here a while. I haven't heard anything like that.
No, it's
rang,
been
but
cricket.
it wasn't the evil railroad. I'm like on call. I'm trying to do two things today, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yes, it's you go down, do your camps and lunch. Oh, yeah. We're all the time. That's where they're actually cutting vegetables. Kind of a neat experience. Yeah, put in, what's the process?
Oh, yeah.
So much time to run those through. How are you feeling, Linda?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, is Mike?
Okay, Janet is back. Are all the commissioners on?
Commissioner KAAZ is present.
Commissioner Culbertson here.
Commissioner Shimke?
Commissioner Shim's here.
Okay, we're back in.
We counted the provisionals, and so we will need to have a motion to certify the results of the November 3rd general election. We now have a total of 36,776 ballots cast. We had one blank one in there, but so as I said, we can give to anyone, and it will be on our website, and a detailed report by candidate, by precinct, for anyone that would like to look at the details. What I have in front of me is just a total votes with each race, total overall, and that's what you'll certify.
Okay, and we did not have any changes in any of the races. Okay. I would entertain a motion at this time to certify the results of the November 3rd, 2020 election.
So moved by Commissioner KAAZ.
There's a motion by Commissioner KAAZ. Is there a second?
Second by Commissioner
Culbertson. Okay, a motion by Commissioner KAAZ and seconded by Commissioner Culbertson to certify the results of the 2020 November 3rd election. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I just had a question. None of the races changed the result?
No, none of the races changed.
Okay.
All right. So,
Jenna, this is Commissioner Shimke, of course, when I sat between the last time you were in the meeting room and now, I had one more question that came up that I'm hoping you could help me with.
Sure.
How do we, so in-person voting, there's obviously far less risk of qualified, voter, given all the steps and protocol and procedures that you have in place. How do we validate or audit mail-ins? Again, just curious. You don't have to turn it doesn't matter which news channel you turn on if you believe it. There's questions about a lot of the quality of mail-ins. What does that audit process look like, just, again, for my education?
Any ballot, well, first we mail the ballots out, and those ballots are not to be forwarded. That guarantees that voter must reside at the residence where they are registered. Second process, when they come in, we look to make sure that they have a signature on it, which is mandatory. The next process is they're scanned into our voter system. When they're scanned in, a signature automatically pops up on the screen. And so at that time, it's very easy for us to verify the signature of the voter. Now, we take into consideration when we're looking at that signature the age of the voter, if there could be any physical reason why the signature might be different. So we take all that into consideration. At that point, once it is scanned in, there's a separate board that takes and removes the ballot from the envelope. The envelope goes in one pile, the ballot goes in the next pile. We then put them in stacks of 100. We'll count to make sure that there is 100 ballots. We'll count to make sure there's 100 envelopes so that we can know with certainty that a ballot was not accidentally left in an envelope. At that point, the ballots are scanned into the DS-200, which is what we use to count the ballots. As we scan in 100, we make sure that 100 is recorded on the DS-200. We take very many steps, very many precautions to make sure that our numbers are accurate. I think that because, as you said on the media, so much of the time they question whether that's correct. And I think that's why the legislators 2 years ago put into effect the manual audit, because those are not ran back through the DS-200. Those are manually hand-tallied by a group of men and women that are not my employees. So that's the steps that we take.
So just a follow-up to that would be, you mentioned, given the number of provisionals we had, there's a lot of people that have moved, right? So if we mailed to an address that we had on, again, they were registered to an address, we mail to that person at that address. Technically, whomever resides there now, I realize that these are a lot of ifs or assumptions, but they could open that mail, they could complete that mail, and they could return that mail. And doesn't sound like even the protocols that we have available to us would necessarily catch that if somebody did want to take advantage or create fraud, obviously, or commit a crime. Unfortunately, there are those types of people out there. But as long as it was returned and had some type of a signature on it, am I correct in thinking that the process or protocol you just walked us through, it'd be very difficult to disqualify?
Well, you also have to realize that before that ballot is put in the mail to that voter must request with an advanced ballot application, and it has their signature on it. So that's just one extra precaution. Could it happen? I imagine anything can happen. But that safeguard of having that advanced ballot application on file, which is also signed by that voter. There were so many applications sent to voters this year. We had voters that maybe received 5 or 6 advanced ballot applications through the mail, all besides one from outside third parties. We had voters that called us on Election Day that said, I did not apply for an advanced ballot. I don't know why you guys mailed it. Well, we kept 15,000 advanced ballot applications in alphabetical order so that we could go pull that advanced ballot application and prove to that voter that they did sign and request. I think that there was so much confusion for the voters this year because of third parties mailing out advanced ballot applications. I know that I don't think Leavenworth County has fraud. Could somebody deliberately do something illegal? And it is illegal. It's, I don't know, I think it's even a felony to obstruct the voting system. I think it can happen. I feel very confident with the processes and procedures we have in place that Leavenworth County has very high integrity. And I think that the voters should have a lot of trust in the results of this election.
Again, I don't disagree. And again, Commissioner Shimke, I was not suggesting anything locally. Just wanted to better understand the process or procedures around it. I'm going to guess, because it's not a Leavenworth County requirement, it's probably a state of Kansas or Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, that has that application requirement. Meaning, I'm going to assume there's other places where you wouldn't have had to apply for that application for mail-in. They just allowed mail-in, is that correct? So it wouldn't have had the same kind of checks and balances in place that somebody would have to mail an application with their signature from an address as kind of an authentication process. Is that fair? That, again, I don't know if Leavenworth County, state of Kansas, in comparison to other places where maybe that protocol or authentication doesn't exist.
Well, of course, the state of Kansas has that requirement. I'm not certain of other states. I think there are states that allow all mail ballot, and we have had all mail ballot elections here in the county. And when you have an all mail ballot, that voter does not have to request. In Kansas, that is the only opportunity that a voter would not actually request. And I don't know about other states, Chad. I would think that they would have a lot of the same procedures in place, but I'm not certain.
This is Commissioner Cobb.
That was my question. Thank you. I just, again, wanted to reiterate you and your team did a great job in comparison as far as how quickly we understand what's going on versus a handful of areas out there that are still clueless. Very well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner KAAZ, did you want to be recognized?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I just want to say that I personally sat and observed the process throughout the entire process of the election cycle, and I can tell you that the staff members look very carefully at the signatures that are on the ballot, or, on the signature page of the mail-in ballots. And if there's any question whatsoever, they do make a phone call with the number on record if they can get a hold of that voter. Sometimes they don't return the call. Sometimes they don't come back in to sign the ballot or whatever. But they do look very carefully and take every precaution to make sure that the voter that has sent in the ballot is actually the voter who is registered to vote.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Culbertson, did you have anything to add?
No, I was just going to comment on what Chad was asking about. If every state had the same regulations that the state of Kansas had, we wouldn't probably have near as many issues. But I know there are some states out there that, like Janet said, don't even require a request for a mail-in ballot. They just mail them in, so there's no checks and balances on that. And even in person, there's other states that don't even require identification to vote. So I wish every state had the same regulation the state of Kansas had.
Okay, thank you. I would point out one thing that, having been involved in the political process all these years, I can tell you that I think Sherry Grogan and the Democrat Party and Melinda Arbor on the Republican Party. They also are part of this accountability process. There are hundreds of people that were involved in being poll watchers and actively helping in the elections, and they're watching. So this is all being watched and observed, and there's nobody is doing anything behind the scenes because it's all out in the open and it's being watched by both sides, and that's what makes it fair. And I think we have a pretty good system working here. So we have a motion on the floor. Is if there's no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner KAAZ?
Commissioner KAAZ votes yes.
Commissioner Shimke?
Commissioner Shimke votes yes.
Commissioner Culbertson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And it's approved. So.
All right, I'm going to have you sign this, Mike. And commissioners, the next time you're in the office, if you would please sign this certification also. Thank you.
Did you all hear that?
Yes, thank you, Janet.
All right. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to? Let's see. We should come out of the. Just adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner KAAZ moves to adjourn.
Commissioner Culbertson, second.
Okay. There's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Commissioner Culbertson?
Commissioner Culbertson, aye.
Commissioner KAAZ?
Aye.
Commissioner Shimke?
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
And I vote aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
And